To kick us off, I want to be sure everybody knows that the opinions and assertions contained herein are private ones of the authors and speakers and not to be construed as official or reflecting the views of the Department of Defense, the Uniformed Services University, of the Health Sciences, or any other agency of the U.S. government. So I'm going to welcome Mr. Michael Gallagher and Ms. Allison Rollins, who will be talking today about image-based resources. Take it away, guys.
Great. Thank you, Dina. Again, my name is Mike Gallagher. I'm the medical illustrator with ETI, and I'm presenting today with Allison Rollins from LRC. I just wanted to add a couple notes. The disclaimer, we as presenters don't have any financial disclosures. And due to the topic of this talk, we are not copyright attorneys either. And also, as a heads up, there are graphic images here. So if you've got small prying eyes, there are things that cannot be unseen. So moving it forward, for presentation objectives, we are here to discuss with you available online image resources, and we're going to discuss different image types, locations to find these images, and then the copyright or usage limits to image and citation methods as well for your presentations. At the end of the presentation, we hope that you have the ability to source at least 3 different types of images and identify ways to determine whether or not you have the rights to use those images in your presentation or other, and also to properly cite those images. Just a little recap kind of the previous slide. I'm going to be continuing with this introduction, and then I'm going to cover the image types. Allison will discuss image rights and citations with you, and then at the end, there'll be a little recap, which I will join back in for. So how did this talk begin? Well, it's based on our experience at ETI, where we get a lot of image requests from the USUS community, and they're used in presentations and lectures and educational material. What we do when we get a request is that we ask, does this image already exist somewhere else? Has it already been created? And is it available to you? And we ask the user to do due diligence, basically, and do a search, because a lot of anatomical images are pretty common standard images, and we don't want to have to redraw something that we don't need to. If we do need to do a redraw, or if there is something that isn't out there that you'd like to have described, we are more than happy to create those images for you. Another instance that ETI comes across images is in recordings of presentations. When you record with ETI, we will review your slide deck just to make sure that everything flows nicely. But also we notice that some of the images are kind of below quality level or not up to our expectations of what a good image would be. And also that there's image rights used not correctly. And we want all images to have attributes and to be above board as far as copyright goes. So instead of telling people just to go back and find images, have them go back to Google and the same resources and finding copyrighted images that they're just going to populate their presentations with, again, we thought that we'd provide you with image resources that are more like open source images or have multiple use rights, so that you can put these into your presentations without any sort of copyright restrictions. So what does an ideal image look like to ETI? Well, we like images that communicate, first of all. They're supposed to support your material, they should be functional, and they should serve to clarify and not confuse. They should also captivate. They should bring the learner in and make them kind of more interested in what it is that you're talking about. And they should be a certain quality. It should speak of the level of education that you're trying to provide to them. And lastly, copyright usage. Do you have the rights to use this image in your presentation? And all those are crucial elements. So there's a handout that we have put together. It is not available right now. I believe we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but it's going to list all the sites and more that I discuss in the upcoming lectures. So you don't have to write down all these sites. They will be on a handout that will be available to you. And I believe it's going to be through LibGuides in the library. And if it's not there, then please contact myself, michael.gallagher.ctr@usus.edu, and I will provide you a handout that has a list of all the sites that I'm covering today. So next, I'm going to talk about image types. What I've done to facilitate this conversation the best is to break the images down into different categories. And these categories are names that are common to the uses medical and health education community. And it's so that everyone's on the same page when I'm discussing a certain collection of images. It'll help facilitate your search. It'll speed it up, and it'll also help you identify and name certain types of collections that different sites are good for. And you can see this, this applies more when you see the handout because it's broken down into those categories as well. The first image type is didactic. And what I mean by this is a straight up medical illustration, as you traditionally know them. They're from anatomical atlases. They're illustrations. A lot of them have labels on them. They're anatomy and physiology. They also go down to microbiology and cellular biology, but they're all didactic. They're learning based. They're there to serve to teach a purpose or serve the teaching function, and they aid in your teaching presentations. They're known as illustrations. Some call them cartoons, and they could be either 2D or 3D. So these are samples of didactic type images. Now I'm going to talk about a few sites that are excellent as far as I'm concerned that I found that had didactic images available to you to use under different rights conditions, but you could put in your presentations. One of those sites is a site called Anatomy Tool, and this is a consortium of people in the Netherlands who put together a site that has excellent features for searching different images. They have also many other, it's not just images that they have, they also have radiology images. They've got some other anatomy resources. They've got multiple links. This is kind of what I would say is the first go-to image source that you should look up and explore as well, not just look at their images. Their image search function is very well. It's part of multiple collections. So you can see that there's color and black and white images. The good thing about this collection in particular is that they've got the Sabota collection, and many of the images don't have labels, which I like because then you can go in and add your own labels. These are all in the public domain as well, so it's very nice and easy to cite. Another site that is excellent to look at is the Wikimedia Commons. I know most of you know this already, and this is kind of tough to search because it's not exclusively anatomically based. It has all sorts of images, but you can narrow it down pretty quickly if you use the right search terminologies. It has multiple collections. It has all of Gray's Anatomy is in there. Again, everything from gross to the cellular anatomy. And then it even has interesting images like this. So if you want to make your presentation kind of multimedia, Wikimedia Commons is a very good place to go. Instead of searching something like nose or nasal cavity, I narrowed it down to olfactory bulb. When you do something like that, when you narrow your search down, it really helps a lot in finding better quality images and more of what you're looking for. So if you use very specific search terms, I found I had much greater success when I was using the Wikimedia Commons sites. Another good source is OpenStax.org. They have open access textbooks here. The textbooks themselves, I think, are more pre-med based. They're not really med school. They're a little bit below, but the images are very good and they can still be used in med school presentations as well. And these cover anatomy, physiology, and microbiology as well. So they have all sorts of images in there, also very good quality. You'll notice that all these images that I'm picking out are decent images that can be used in any sort of presentation. Not to ignore the microbiology aspect of things, there's a site called Reactome, and this is an icon library of different images. It's similar, I don't know if any of you know a site called BioRender, but it's similar to that, or they're trying to do something similar to BioRender, and that's giving you the tools to create your own images. And this image here was created all from icons from their library, and the whole library can be downloaded and you can recreate any sort of pathways, mode of action, anything that you want. You can do it here. There's also people that have created pathways. So if you know a pathway, you can search it, and there's a good chance that somebody's already created it and you can use that in your presentation as well. This other site is called Smart Survey, and this is very easy to cite because all you have to do is put on the web address. This is what I would call clip art in a lot of ways, but it's really good, high quality clip art, colored images. These are, you can kind of get a feel for the style of the illustration, but it's all a consistent style throughout. It's very deep. They've got gross anatomy, they've got microbiology, cellular biology. You can do the same thing that you can with Reactome and build different pathways as well. It's a really good site and has a wide range of materials on it. And I really encourage you to take a look at it. So that wraps up the didactic sites that I really liked. For radiology, pretty straightforward. These are diagnostic type images, your x-rays, your MRIs, CTs, ultrasounds. There are a few sites that are really good. The first one that always pops up is MedPix. This is a good site. The images are not super high quality, but they're good. They're sorted on a case-by-case basis. So if you know what you're looking for, you can find it that way if you want to talk about a certain sort of pathology. But all sorts of images. It's not just CT scans. It's also x-rays and other types of images as well. So good source. The images are very easy to cite because once you download them, the citation is built in. So it's very handy that way. Another site is OpenEye, which is from the National Institute of Health. This is a huge site, which is very difficult to search in a lot of ways because it contains mostly research and journal articles. And if you do an image search here for something like heart, you're going to get a million hits because they're going to have all sorts of hearts. It's not just human hearts, it's mouse hearts, it's insect hearts, it's whatever has a heart will be in there. And so what I found it most helpful to do was to narrow it down to a certain condition, or if you're going to say heart, say human heart or human whatever the nose or whatever it is that you're looking for. I did a search on aortic aneurysms here, and you can see that there's a variety of images that pop up from MRIs to your scans to even like surgical photos. Again, more MRIs, just really nice images. Contrast images, just fantastic. So if you want to, this was good to show multiple image types of the same sort of condition that is being shown. Another group that did a similar thing was Radiopedia. This site has ads, so I'm not sure if it's in favor or not with the USU LRC, but it's cited a lot as a good source for images, and it is. It's very easy to copy and paste their credits. What I like about this site is that it's not just your radiology images, it also has some illustrations, and it also has teaching slides, and it's not just a case information. And what I mean by teaching slides is slides like this, which have no labels here, but then you have labels. So it's good as a teaching resource as well. And again, I did another search on here for aortic aneurysm just to see what the different sorts of images would pop up. And these are the images that popped up there. So again, you'll see a variety of images and for all sorts of different cases. The next type that I found were pathology images. These are photographic images of either gross anatomy, histology, microscopic, or electron microscopy. These are the cell images. Again, different pathology conditions on the gross level, histology. So I found a few good sites for that. Public Health Image Library is a great resource. It's very easily searchable, easy to credit as well. Diverse Library has histology and gross, as well as the electron microscopy images. Another site is the PEER, and that stands for the Pathology Educational and Information Resource Site, and it's put together by the University of Alabama at Birmingham, their Department of Pathology. They're very easy to cite as well and download these images. They've got a nice collection of gross pathology as well as histology, and I also think radiology as well. So this is a good collection to explore. Lots of images here. And then the last set that I put on here for pathology was really more, it's kind of an outlier, but it was, I put it on here. It's called Specimens. It's a Flickr site by a gentleman named Ed Uthman from Houston. He's a pathologist there, but he had by far the most beautiful images that I saw of histology samples and also samples for pathology examples as well. So you'll see different slides, but just gorgeously shot, nice colors, just large photos, really, really good quality. I really enjoyed his work. So it's worth exploring. The one thing about Flickr is it's hard to search if you actually want to search for a particular thing instead of scrolling through their entire collection. But if you do search on Flickr, it's helpful to search via their photo stream section, not necessarily in the category, but in their entire photo stream. So remember that when using Flickr. So the next category that I have is Cadaver. These are gross anatomy photos, cadaver dissections, their prosections, their organs, osteology, slice image data, that kind of images. Some of them have labels, some of them don't. But there's a number of great resources out there for this kind of image. One of them is well known already to you, the Visible Human, or I hope it's well known to you, the Visible Human set. There are large data sets of both male and female. They have coronal sections and then transverse sections, which are both photographed and they're as CT scans as well, if you want to do some sort of comparative anatomy or comparative between the different modes of visualization. But they are big data sets and they are free to use. Wonderful resource. Another one is Blue Link, and this is put together by the University of Michigan. Their anatomy department, they have lots of slides. It's a big library. It's a big learning resource. I would actually recommend sending your students to look at it too. Multiple levels of education. It goes pretty deep. They've got lots of wonderful images from dissections. Some of them have labels, some don't. It's not consistent. It's not one-to-one label for no labels, but you can certainly find them if you hunt around. What else do they have? They have other just images where portions are colorized, and then some images that just have nothing on them at all. They also have illustrations as well. These are a little bit cartoony, but they certainly communicate a lot of information, and it's worth looking into. It's easy to download their images, and it's easy to credit them as well. And they're very happy to help you with any sort of educational use images. Another great resource for cadavers information is from the University of British Columbia. That's Clinical Anatomy. They have a lot of images here of organs, and they also have illustration collection, which is pretty big. And they also have a really interesting feature of 3D reconstructions where these images exist in 3D. And this is another site that I would definitely recommend sending students to. You can rotate these images. I didn't embed their images, but I don't know the legal or the technical aspects of embedding images in your presentation, but it might be worth looking into for sure. But they're fascinating, and I just recommend checking it out on your own. They're really well done. The next category is what I call pop-sci, and these are mostly stock photos. There's photos or illustrations, sometimes a mashup of both. They don't really serve a didactic purpose, and they're more just to kind of wow you in a lot of ways. They're conceptual, they're editorial. They show research or technology. They're kind of eye candy images is what I call them, and they work well in titles and transitions, and they set up different sections of your lectures. So it's nice to break it up every once in a while if you don't want to include serious imagery or add a little bit of lightheartedness to it. So these are stock photos mostly, or stock photo in nature, or what I would call stock photo in nature. One great site is Medical Graphics. They've got a collection of images that are 3D images that you can pop into your presentations. Again, they're not really able to serve a particular function, but they might serve good in transition points or something along those lines. Another great site is the Flickr Commons site, and this is good because it has photos that people have submitted. There's also National Institute of Health posts up to Flickr as well, and individuals post their artwork. So these serve as good transition points or just images of interest, general interest, not specific to any sort of topic or anything like that. But what you have to watch out for whenever using Flickr as well is that each image is on a case-by-case basis. So please check the rights when using them. and that is the Creative Commons. And Creative Commons is, I think Flickr might be a subset of Creative Commons as well, or it might draw from there. But there's a lot of different images that are similar to what you'll find in the Flickr section, but a little bit more broad-based and more stock-like, and you certainly a much more variety. So it's worth checking there. And again, check image usage all the time for these. Another image type is historical, and these are both historical in medicine and military, and this includes historical atlases. This is the Vesalius Atlas, but I'm also talking about historical images from medicine, and again, textbooks, historical anatomical text. Even though they're historical, a lot of these can be used as didactic images. So just because they're elegant drawings and they look kind of old, don't dismiss them as images that you can't use in your presentation for pointing out structures as well, because they certainly are good for that as well. So some of the sites for this are the National Library of Medicine. They have historic medical photographs, and they also carry images that are from textbooks of old. And these serve as, again, as kind of novelty images in some ways. They also have public health information too. Another great source is the Library of Congress. Has tons of photos, historical to both medicine, and just the history of the US and the world. Lots of, I mean, just you could spend hours searching Library of Congress, just fascinating. And check image usages there. The rights vary. But as photos, posters, illustrations, artwork, just a diverse collection if you're looking up for historical sites. Another great site that I showed an image from before was from the University of North Carolina. Their library, they actually have a full scanning of the Vesalius collection. They also have resources of other great historical anatomical atlases, but please be sure to check usage on these sites as well. It's not just download and use it. Some of them require permission. So again, on a case-by-case basis, but some really interesting photos that you can find in there, or scans in there, of historical atlases. And our last section that I will talk about are contemporary photos. You might want these for your presentation. They're general photos of people, contemporary photos. They're people in military and medicine, research. Again, you see these as kind of stock photos, but these are all people-based. So there's a few different sources we have for that. There's the Defense Visual Information Distribution Service. This is a big search site, and it has all sorts of military and medical military photos that you can draw from. Again, check the rights on each of the images because they vary throughout the site. It's not a total one-to-one. Another site is USA.gov. It's kind of interesting because their site initially sends you to their social media feed. So you get a lot of publicity photos from them, which are good for your presentations. But if you can also do a site that will lead to all sorts of government agencies if you want to do an anatomical search. And what you have to do is you have to exhaust all the social media terms and then say continue this search. It's kind of hard, and you got to dig around a little bit, but it might be worth it if you get really stuck looking for anatomical images as well. So these are images of that nature that you'll find on USA.gov from their publicity feed. And the last one is a non-military one. It's from the Public Health Image Library, and this is more worldwide image sites showing healthcare in different aspects. And now I'm going to pass it on to Allison, who's going to discuss image rights with you.
Thank you very much. So one of the things I just wanted to kind of reiterate is that copyright does apply to images. Sometimes people think that if they find it on the internet, they can use the image, and that's not the case. It does follow copyright law as a whole, and the image belongs to the artist or the photographer, or if an organization purchased or hired that work, it might belong to them. Some creators or owners elect to collect fees, and some might choose to release it under a Creative Commons license, and a lot of the works that you saw today are released in part or in whole under Creative Commons licenses. Sometimes the university has licensed collections which do give us some rights, but those are on such a case-by-case basis that it's hard to use in a setting like this one when there's we're trying to give some general guidelines. And you'll also find that some items are released under released in the public domain. Oftentimes that applies to works that might have been published before 1923. There's a couple laws that describe the public domain, and it might also describe government works. But I think that the Creative Commons license is one of the ones that is one of our most important considerations when we look at these types of works, at least for what we're covering today. Creative Commons licenses have several different variations. It controls nonprofit use or for-profit commercial use. It might describe whether or not you are allowed to modify the image. It might allow you to release them with attribution required or without attribution required. The basic goal with the Creative Commons license is that authors still get recognized, or creators still get recognized for their contributions, but they get to decide how their work is used without kind of going through the more formal work of requiring licenses for everyone. They do want to put it out there for other people to use, but they want to control how. When you go to the Creative Commons wiki page, they actually tell you how it is that they recommend you cite their images. For example, usually what they want you to cover is the title, the author, the source, and the license type. If you look at the example here, structure of the eye is the title, and if you click on that, and this is really good for when you're embedding things in online embedded slides or online documents, you can include these hyperlinks. Structure of the eye, if you were to click on that URL, it would take you to the source. It says who the creator is, OpenStack College, and unfortunately, the hyperlink didn't transfer over, but that actually, when you click on it, will take you to the OpenStack's homepage. And then it says Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. So the Creative Commons license has kind of gone through some evolution over the years. I think they're currently on kind of version 4. So this actually was attributed under the previous version. And the attribution license means that you're allowed to reuse this work, but you do have to give credit to the creator. So in this case, OpenStax. And Creative Commons does have a wiki page where you can visit that page. It's on the LRC's LibGuide, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. And that guide will allow you to click directly to their page. Sometimes you're going to find an image that you're going to be citing something that doesn't necessarily need to follow the Creative Commons format. So if you're publishing under a society or a journal where they tell you how you need to cite things, you need to follow their instructions. So they might want you to use APA style or AMA style or Chicago style. In those cases, my favorite resource is called the Purdue OWL Online Writing Lab, which has a really nice way of searching the style guides. They're written in kind of everyday language, and you can access them for free. There's no barriers. There's a lot of other really excellent tools out there for how to use different style guides. And as Dina mentions, all images do need to be referenced. So you can't just put an image up there and not cite it. Technically, public domain, you are allowed to, but it is kind of bad form. And if you don't cite it, and even if it were public domain, you're not kind of letting your audience know that you were following the rules. So they might think that you weren't citing attributing the work when you should have. So it is always good to cite and usually required. At the very top of our chat, there is a link that goes to usis.libguides.com/copyright. That guide includes a link to the handout that we had today. It links some of the resources that Mike covered. And in a couple weeks, we will embed the recording of this presentation on that page so that you can refer to it at any time in the future if you need to.
Okay, I'd like to just wrap up by saying little insights and tips. Know the copyrights of the images that you are getting. Allison stressed that. And even though you're at a certain site, just be sure that that site's policy covers all the images at that site. Some sites are per image, and then some sites are based globally. So be sure that you know the copyrights when you're getting the images. I find it also helpful when you're searching to narrow your search whenever possible. If there's a way to narrow it in the beginning, do advanced searches. I highly recommend. It'll help you find stuff a lot faster. I also recommend using terms that are more specific. Like if you're looking for neuron images, I found it helpful if you do a search on, say, axon or myelin. It'll narrow down your search and get much better images quickly. I also highly recommend familiarizing yourself with each site that you go into and explore links. A lot of these sites themselves are great, but they also have wonderful links, and they might lead you down a rabbit hole into finding all new sites that are just great resources that you'll find and hopefully we'll share with the rest of us. And again, as Allison was saying, cite every image. Even though it's public domain, you should cite it. And all of this is really up to you and whether you put together a solid presentation. So if there's any questions, I guess we can take them now.
For those of you that joined us late, there is a handout that I will place in the chat, a link to it, so that you can get to that site, which has a lot of the information that was discussed. As Allison said, this will be available on the LibGuide site as well as the USU ETI YouTube playlist. So I'll put the link in again. And thank you all.